Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Prabhupada ki Granthran Srimad Bhagavatam ki Gaur Premanandi. We're going to continue this morning with very nice pastime of Krishna. Kind of contradictory, but Krishna shows the spiritual world to the residents of the spiritual world. Krishna performed his pastimes on earth in Vrindavan, which is not different than the spiritual Goloka, Vrindavan. And after Nanda Maharaj experienced the opulences of Varuna, and then that Varuna worshipped Krishna, he wanted to see the opulence of Vaikuntha. Because when he came back, you know the story? No? You know what? Okay. Can you make the volume a little louder? Just make the volume a little louder. I can move the machine, but she's got it wedged underneath the seat here. So just move the volume, make the volume louder.
Yes.
Can you do that?
Yes.
Thank you. They don't have to mess around with this thing. Okay. We observe Ekadasi. In your home, you observe Ekadasi, I'm sure.
We do, yeah.
Okay. So, Nanda Maharaj, he was also observing Ekadasi. And the rule for Ekadasi is you have to break Ekadasi on the following morning, Dwadasi day, during a certain interval of time. And there's technical rules about when you're supposed to break the Ekadasi prior to the Dwadasi beginning. It's a juncture, a sandhi, between one day and the next day. So there's some technical rules which I don't fully understand, but there's the solar day, which is really easy, sunrise, sunset, then the next morning sunrise, or midnight till midnight. That's the solar day. That's easy. It's always the same. But lunar days aren't always the same. Lunar days are Vedic calendars based on lunar days. And there's 27 lunar days per month instead of, 30, 31, and sometimes less. So solar calendar works differently than lunar calendar. And the lunar calendar is based upon the moon's movement through those 27, they're called nakshatras. Nakshatras are smaller constellations of stars, smaller compared to the zodiac, which are bigger constellations of stars. And they have names. And as the moon moves through one into the next one, that's a lunar day. And sometimes the lunar days are less than a solar day. On this particular occasion, our acharyas explained that the lunar day was 18 hours. So the lunar day was finishing, that's when you're supposed to break the Ekadasi Vrata and Dwadasi day. So he knew the rule, Nanda knew the rule, and so he was taking bath before breaking the Ekadasi for the Dwadasi fast. So an agent of Varuna didn't know the rule. It looked like he was breaking the rule by getting ready to break the Ekadasi before it was time to do it. So he kidnapped him and took him hostage and took him to the abode of Varuna. And the cowherd men that were accompanying Nanda Maharaj when he went to the river Jamuna to take his bath, you going to turn the volume down? What are you going to do? No. the cowherd men that were with Nanda Maharaj, they saw him enter the river Jamuna, but he didn't come back out, and he's their king. And they made loud cries, Nanda Maharaj, please come back, where are you? And so Krishna heard the cries. Krishna came. Oh, he came very quickly. They said, what happened? So Krishna dove into the Jamuna to find Nanda Maharaj. And there's a special passageway that Krishna knew where he could reach the abode of Varuna. Doesn't give details what that passageway is, but in any case, he went to the abode of Varuna, and Varuna was so happy to see Krishna. You've come to see me, which is what he wanted. So immediately he stood up, placed Krishna on a special seat, worshipped Krishna. Nanda Maharaj was watching all this, going, what's this? This is Varuna has opulence like we've never seen before anywhere on earth. And he who is so opulent is worshipping Krishna. Varuna is way up there in the hierarchy of demigods. Brahma, Indra, and right behind him is Varuna. He's very, amongst the demigods, he's very exalted, especially honored demigod, and he's worshipping Nanda's son. Nanda was astonished. Varuna gave Nanda Maharaj back to Krishna, said, you've come for him. I knew who he was, and I was waiting for you to come. Thank you for coming, and thank you for gracing my abode, and I'm most fortunate, so please return your father. So he returned. And when Nanda returned, they broke the Ekadasi fast properly, and they're sitting together with the elders of Vraja, saying, who's this boy? And they're remembering all the wonderful deeds that Krishna did, and he's not one of us. And perhaps he's the Supreme Person. And if he's the Supreme Person, I wonder if he will be very kind and show us his eternal abode, because they thought of themselves like conditioned souls, that they know the philosophy of cycle of birth and death. We're wandering from higher to lower species, and here and there, and now we're over here. And will he give us residence in his abode? We want to see Vaikuntha. We want to see the realm of Brahman, the transcendental realm. So Krishna knew their desire, and he considered, let me fulfill their desire. I'll take them to the place where they can see Goloka Vrindavan. So this is Canto 10, Chapter 28, Text 15. I'll read the translation. Lord Krishna revealed the indestructible Brahmajyoti, spiritual effulgence, which is unlimited, conscious, and eternal. Sages see that spiritual existence in trance when their consciousness is freed from the modes of material nature. So we read Prabhupada's purport, not the BBT purport, and we read Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's purport. And we're going to continue now. There's a lot of information here about what the spiritual world is, the kingdom of God. We have not so much information about heaven. They're kind of religions of the world will accept that there is such a thing as heaven, but they don't know so much about what's there. Maybe there's angels, maybe there's some nice things. But there's not much information at all about the kingdom of God. So this is abundant information about the kingdom of God. And now we're going to read reference to this verse, what Krishna showed them, and it reference is made in the prayers of Devaki to Krishna when he appeared in the prison house of Kamsa. You're familiar with that, right? Krishna appeared as the son of Devaki and Vasudeva. Vasudeva offered prayers, and now Devaki is offering prayers. It's Canto 10, Chapter 3. Sri Devaki said, "My dear Lord, there are different Vedas, some of which describe you as unperceivable through words and the mind. Yet, you are the origin of the entire cosmic manifestation. You are Brahman, the greatest of everything, full of effulgence like the sun. You have no material cause. You are free from change and deviation, and you have no material desires. Thus the Vedas say that you are the substance. Therefore, my Lord, you are directly the origin of all Vedic statements, and by understanding you, one gradually understands everything. You are different from the light of Brahman and Paramatma, that's because he's Bhagavan, yet you are not different from them. Everything emanates from you. Indeed, you are the cause of all causes, Lord Vishnu, the light of all transcendental knowledge." So now here's some commentary. This is commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti. Quote, "As it is well known that the devotees control the Lord by praising him, I, Devaki, will make this child submissive to my prayers and thus express my desires." Unquote. Thinking in this way, Devaki speaks, "O Lord, we are afflicted by fear at every second, but you are not fearful at all." Devaki expresses this in 4 successive verses. She prays, "The Vedas describe you, your famous form, as avyakta." Avyakta means not manifest. Vyakta, avyakta. Not perceivable by the material senses. The Vedas describe you as adyam, without birth, and the one whose bodily effulgence is unchanging and without material qualities, unquote. The emphasis now is on the Brahman effulgence. This statement about Brahman is supported in the scriptures in many places. Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 13 of Canto 10. This is Brahma steals the calves, put them in a cave, steals the cowherd boys, put them in a cave. That pastime. Thus Lord Brahma saw the supreme Brahman. This is when Krishna showed what he showed, even though the cowherd boys and the calves were in the cave. He saw the supreme Brahman, by whose energy this entire universe, which with its moving and non-moving living beings, is manifested. So it's interesting. It's saying the material world is manifested by the energy of Brahman. Then our verse this morning, 10.28.15, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Yad Brahma Jyoti Sanatanam, Brahma Jyoti, the Brahma Jyoti, the spiritual sky, spiritual effulgence, Jyoti, Sanatanam. Lord Krishna has revealed the indestructible spiritual effulgence, which is unlimited, conscious, and eternal. The description of the spiritual realm. In Harivangsha, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, quote, "That supreme truth, Parabrahman, expands itself into all variegatedness of this universe. You should know it to be my own concentrated effulgence. O Parata, In Brahma Samhita, similarly, it states, if you know the verse, you can say with me, could you not do text messaging while we're having class? It's distracting. Thank you. Yasya prabha prabhavato jagadanda koti koti svashesha vasidari vibhota bhinnam tad brahma nishnantamashesha bhutam govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. Translation: I serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental bodily effulgence, known as Brahmajyoti, which is unlimited, unfathomed, and all-pervasive, is the cause of the creation of unlimited numbers of planets, etc., with varieties of climates and specific conditions of life. So here it is again, that the Brahmajyoti is the cause of creation. Unlimited numbers of planets. Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita 14:27, Brahmanohi patishtaham, I'm the basis of the impersonal Brahman. These are all verses to just illuminate or elaborate on what the Brahmajyoti is. Krishna is the basis, it's from him. In relation to Krishna's vibhutis or powers, vibhutis, that's chapter 10, opulences of the Absolute. Chapter 10. Vibhuti Yoga is called in Sanskrit. So vibhuti, his powers or his opulences. In relation to Lord Krishna's vibhutis or powers, Sridhar Swami, in his commentary on Gita, mentions that the impersonal feature of the Lord is called Brahman, indicated by the use of the word Param. Param Brahma. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 24, Matsya, the fish incarnation, speaking to the king. His name is Satyavrata. He's the one that was taking sacred water, and in his palm of his hand was a little fish. And all of a sudden the fish got really big, and then bigger and bigger and bigger. Matsya Avatar. Lord Matsya assures King Satyavrata that the absolute truth can be known from the words of the Vedas. Quote, you will be thoroughly advised and favored by me, and because of your inquiries, everything about my glories, which are known as Para Brahma, will be manifest within your heart. Thus, you will know everything about me. More. This is Yamunacharya. Yamunacharya is the spiritual master of Ramanujacharya. You've heard of Ramanujacharya? Yes? No? Our line is Madhvacharya. Brahma, Madhva, Lord Chaitanya Gaudiya Sampradaya. That's our line. Yeah. There's another one, Sri and Ramanujacharya. Ramanujacharya had a spiritual master. His name was Jamunacharya. He wrote many wonderful things. So it's reference to one of his writings. Stotra Ratna. Ratna means jewel. Stotra means like prayer, string of prayers. Jamunacharya writes, the Supreme Brahman is your vibhuti, opulence, or exceptional opulence, or specific powers. In Rupa Goswami's writing, Nectar Devotion, it states, Krishna and Brahman are one, as in the example of sun and sun and its rays. So Devaki continued, Krishna, she's praying to him in the prison house. Krishna, your associates, your devotees, your holy abode, and forms, your forms, all arise from Shuddha Sattva, pure goodness. You are beyond the particulars of the material world and without material desires. You are without material thirst because you are full and perfect. You are the person who takes away material desires from the devotee's heart and gives that devotee the desire to attain the Lord. You are the light for all transcendental knowledge. You are Vishnu because you reveal all truths. Though I am ignorant, I have spoken as you have revealed yourself to me. This is Devaki's prayers. So she's offering glorification of Krishna, who has appeared as her son. So now we're going to another really complicated section. One of the final chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, is really large. It's prayers by the personified Vedas. What's going on in the prayers by the personified Vedas is there's a discussion between the Kumaras and the personified Vedas, the Upanishads, having discussions about a very interesting topic, a puzzling topic. The puzzling topic is using our ear, which is material, and using our tongue, which is material, how do you get to a spiritual place? And so there's this elaborate philosophical discussion, and the short of it is, since everything comes from the source, Krishna, its nature is spiritual, and if used in relation to the source, it acts in a spiritual way. The tongue and the ear can act in a spiritual way. You can spiritualize the body by engaging in service to Krishna. Pretty simple answer, but it's one of the longest chapters in the whole Bhagavatam, and it's really high level discussion, like really high level. So this is a discussion from that chapter. Again, speaking about Krishna's vibhutis, or his opulences, his powers, his special qualities. Think of chapter 10, you get the idea of what vibhuti means. Lord Krishna's personal qualities are further described in the following quotation from the Upanishads. Quote, "He who is all-knowing, from whom the potency of all knowledge comes. He is the wisest of all." That's Mundaka Upanishad. There's a long list of Upanishads saying things. He is the Lord and controller of everyone. Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad. And he who resides within the earth and pervades it, whom the earth does not know. That's the absolute truth. Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad. Lord Vishnu's role in creation is mentioned in many statements in the Vedas. Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad states, he desired, I will become many. So the phrase, so kamyata, that is, he desired. Kama means desire. So kamyata, he desired, here implies that the Lord's personality is eternal, even prior to the creation. The absolute truth experienced desire. And desire is an attribute unique to persons. It's arguing against impersonal. Before the creation there was desire. So where desire arises from, it's not from impersonal, it's from person. The primordial entity, the supreme entity, had desire. So it means he's a person, not impersonal. Very logical. The other is quite illogical. In the Aitareya Upanishad, similarly it states, quote, he saw and his powers sent forth the creation. Unquote. Here the word tat teja refers to Lord Krishna's partial expansion Mahavishnu, who glances upon Maya, thus manifests the material creation. Or Tat Teja. What does Teja mean? Fire? Fire? Yeah. Strength also. Tejas. So here the word Tat Teja refers to the Lord's partial expansion Mahavishnu. Or Tat Teja may refer to the Lord's impersonal Brahman feature. His potency of all pervasiveness, eternal existence. It's also described in Brahma Samhita 540. If you know the verse, you can say with me. Yasya prabha prabhavato jagadanta koti kotish vashesha vasadadi vibhutta bhinnam tad brahma nishkalam anantam vashesha bhutam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord who is endowed with great power. The glowing effulgence of his transcendental form is the impersonal Brahman, which is absolute, complete, and unlimited, and which displays the varieties of countless planets with their different opulences and millions of universes. And then there's this verse that we are reading. Krishna showed the spiritual world that has its effulgence. We don't have to read the translation again. These statements show Lord Krishna as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan and their relationship. Taittiriya Upanishad, quote, "He from whom this cosmic manifestation has emanated, in whom everything will merge after annihilation." We're almost done. This verse shows Lord Vishnu's creative aspect. Then finally, such statements as, quote, "One who has worshipped by means of vows of Chaturmasya attains pious credits which will never be depleted, validate the process of karma." Such statements as attaining knowledge of Brahman, one attains the Supreme, Taittiriya Upanishad, and by realizing him, one transcends death. I stopped there because this prayers by the personified Vedas is really high level. It's like super philosophical, and most people fall asleep when it's super philosophical. But that's chapter 87. I was attending a GBC meeting one year. We were in Tirupati. Have you been to Tirupati? Yeah? You've been? Really? All the way?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I don't
You don't remember. How old were you?
I think I was like 4 or 3.
3 or 4?
Yeah.
Something like that. Well, aside from the Tirupati way up at the top of the hill, there's an ISKCON Tirupati at the bottom of the hill. And it's a really nice place. It was built, the funding was almost entirely from book distribution. How that happened was the president, Revati Raman, established a nice relationship with the TTD folks, the people who organized Tirupati, and they granted him permission to have bookstalls along the path that leads up to Balaji. Some like 4 or 5 bookstalls. So the brahmacharis would go early in the morning, come back in the evening on shifts, and very substantial income from the book distribution. So he was very indebted to them, and they were very pleased with him. They saw how well organized the whole thing was. So then they approached him, Rebati Raman, and said, would you like to take charge of our Luglu stands? Because you organize things so well. He said, sure. So there was some number, I forget what the number was, some number, and they just consolidated it down to a fewer number and did much more money back to TTD than they had before. They had more stalls, but not the same people organizing it. So there's a nice relationship with, the Tirupati temple folks up on the hill and ISKCON. But the ISKCON temple has a really nice guest house. It actually has 2 guest houses, and it fits a lot of people because during busy time there's a lot of people that want to go, and they can't fit everybody upstairs. So they know that ISKCON is nice accommodation. So we had a GBC meeting at the Tirupati ISKCON temple, and one of the things that happened is the morning classes were reading from chapter 87 of Canto 10, this prayers by the personified Vedas. And it's, you have to get your binoculars, and because it's really high. It's really high. And the purports are really long, and it's really involved. And then, morning after morning after morning, we're sitting there listening to prayers by the personified Vedas, just like you heard all these little references. That was just one little section. Reference after reference, because it's personified Vedas. Now, what's personified Vedas mean? What does that mean, personified Vedas? There's the book, there's Srimad Bhagavatam, or there's this Upanishad, that Upanishad, the other Upanishad. And then there's the personified Upanishad. And the personified Upanishads were having a philosophical discussion with one another, along with the 4 Kumaras on different topics. That's what the personified Vedas are. We are going to hear shortly in these morning classes that when Krishna showed the resident of Vrindavan, Goloka Vrindavan, here's what he did. Here's some detail. They were contemplating, will Krishna show us his eternal abode? So Krishna knew their thoughts, and Krishna wanted to show them. So one morning, it was an auspicious morning, so they decided to go early in the morning, before the sun rose, and go to this special place by the river Jamuna and take their morning bath on that auspicious day. So when they went, Krishna went with them. And Krishna immersed himself, and they immersed themselves, and then Krishna lifted them from that immersion in the river Jamuna and showed them Goloka Vrindavan. Would you like to see Goloka Vrindavan? They saw Goloka Vrindavan. Arjuna saw the universal form, but they saw Goloka Vrindavan. And in Goloka Vrindavan, they saw themselves. That was okay, that's where you're going when you finish here. We're going to Goloka Vrindavan. Yay! Going back to Godhead. And they also saw Krishna. And when they saw Krishna, they saw that Krishna was being praised by the personified Vedas. They must have heard it too, because the personified Vedas have sound. And they were thrilled to see what they saw. And then you know what happened after that? Because they're residents of Vrindavan, they're filled with very intimate affection, feelings for Krishna. So that feature of Yogamaya just swept over them. The vision was gone. They forgot everything that they saw. It's likened to a person, or any one of us, when we sleep, we may have a dream. We may not remember our dreams, but if you're experiencing a dream and then you wake up, how long do you remember your dream? Not for very long. Something else covers you, as Mahamaya covers. But the resident of Vrindavan, they're not involved in Mahamaya, they're involved in Yogamaya. So they were overwhelmed with Yogamaya, they forgot everything. They forgot everything. But they intuitively understood, that on one level, a more superficial level you could say, is that Krishna's God. Or he has divine powers, he has opulences that are like, wow, amazing. But overpowering that sense of opulence is the sense of sweetness of he's our son, he's our friend, he's our lover, etc. That's Vrindavan. But Krishna is very kind. He wants to reciprocate with his devotees. So you better be careful what you desire, especially if you become a devotee. Because you just might get it. And if you just might get it, then all kinds of things could happen. You know the story of Sudama, the Brahmin? You know that story?
Yeah.
You know that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Sudama and his wife were Brahmins, and they were living very, very, very meager existence, like super austere. And they weren't troubled by it. They actually liked austerity. Some people like austerity, some people don't. They liked it. But his wife was concerned, oh, he's so skinny. His veins are bulging from his skin, he's so skinny. So she couldn't take it. So she nagged her husband. And finally he went to go see Krishna. But the intention was to ask Krishna for something so it doesn't have to be in such an impoverished condition. But Krishna knew, just like Krishna knew the desire of the residents of Vraja, they wanted to see his abode. They didn't say it to him, he just knew, because he's in the heart of all those devotees. So he knew, he's omniscient. So as he then gave enormous opulence to Sudama, even though Sudama didn't even ask, because Krishna, he likes to give his devotees. But Sudama was reluctant for several reasons. One of those reasons is, if I ask Krishna for opulence, I know what's going to happen. He'll give me so much opulence, and you know what's going to happen after that? I'll become proud. And pride is a really bad thing. There was a question in this yesterday evening class about, can you give some examples of pride? When you receive something and you think, I did it. I deserve it. I'm good, I'm smart, I'm clever, I'm pious, look at me. Look at all that I have in here. All that Varuna had, he considered nothing compared to Nanda Maharaj. He worshipped Nanda Maharaj also. He worshipped Krishna when Krishna came, but before that he worshipped Nanda Maharaj. Because Nanda Maharaj doesn't have worldly opulence. Varuna has fantastic opulence, demigod opulence. Nanda doesn't, but he's worshipping Nanda because of his bhakti, his pure devotion. So Krishna liked giving to his devotees. Even if they're not, attached to those things, he'll give anyways. But especially he likes the quality of love that one has for him. That's what's important to Krishna. And that's what's important to the devotees of Krishna. Supposing, for example, supposing you have some service to do. Supposing, you have to play drum for a kirtan. And so you may, for some function, so you practice and practice and you become good. And then you may think there's two options, A and B. Oh, wow, I've really practiced, I'm sure I'm going to do really well. And you do really well, you think, I'm proud of myself, I did really well. And then option B, there's going to be a function, so you practice and practice, and you're praying to Krishna. I don't know if this is going to be pleasing to you, but I want to do this in such a way that it's pleasing to you, and the event comes, and your whole consciousness absorbed in, this should be for Krishna's pleasure. That's the second, option B experience. In the option B experience, the happiness is so much greater than I did it consciousness. Pride and false ego. So do fantastic in playing mridanga or whatever your service is, cooking or cleaning or this thing or that thing. But whatever you do, do it in the consciousness that that's pleasing to Krishna. And that's the quality that Nanda Maharaj had. It's a quality that the residents of Vrindavan had. That's what's being honored. And Krishna enjoys giving things to his devotees, especially when his devotees aren't attached to being the enjoyers of things that Krishna gives. Or the opposite. When Krishna recognizes somebody has the potential of becoming false enjoyer of something he gives, he may not give. Because it's unwholesome for our consciousness to become attached to material enjoyment, so he may not give. But if he does give, Krishna explains this. If I do give, and I give it in such a way that it no longer come begging and harassing me for more of some other things. I'll instead, when I give them something, I'll give my 2 lotus feet and they won't hankering for those things anymore. That's Krishna's kindness. So that's what happened here in Braja. And we'll continue again tomorrow morning with our acharyas telling us, sharing with us more about Vaikuntha or Goloka, or what it was that Nanda Maharaj and the cowherd men saw. So let's see if there's some discussion. Yeah.
I have 2 questions. One is there a difference between the Mahamaya and the Maya?
We've been discussing this elaborately, but I don't mind doing it again. Not at all. The answer is yes and no. Just like an object and the shadow of the object have a oneness, because the shadow doesn't exist without the object that makes the shadow. But the shadow isn't the object. So Mahamaya is like the shadow energy of the internal potency.
I'm taking the Maya Devi.
Yeah, Maya Devi. Maya Devi. When we in ISKCON say Maya Devi, that means Mahamaya.
Yes. Or the same, Mahamaya and Maya Devi.
We're accustomed to using them the same. I'm making that remark because there are other contexts where that word Maya or Maya Devi can mean something other than the way that we're used to using it in ISKCON, in our common use of the language, Maya Devi. So just sticking with that rather than going to the other possibilities. That Maya is the shadow of the object that's casting the shadow. The reflection that's from which the reflection of the object. So there's a oneness but they're not identical.
The second question is the living entity is under the condition of material nature. The living entity under the condition of material nature, the living entity under the condition of material nature goes through suffering.
Yes.
And at the same time, the living entity is punished by the Maya also. Is the Maya and the material nature, is there what is the difference?
It's the nomenclature Maya and material nature are just different aspects of the same entity. Another term is Prakriti.
Yes.
That's Sanskrit, material nature, Prakriti. And with Prakriti, there's the components of Prakriti are the modes. Prakriti moves by the modes. When you hear Prakriti, it means a mode. When you hear the modes, it means Prakriti. They're inseparable. So Maya is specifically the bewildering feature of Prakriti, material nature. And the bewildering works in different ways. Goodness, passion, ignorance, for example. So we become bewildered, identifying with the mode of ignorance, identifying with the mode of passion, identifying with the mode of goodness. I'm a good man, or I'm a thief, or I'm a businessman, or that those are combining the influence of bewilderment or Mahamaya with false ego. So false ego is also influenced by Mahamaya, the whole shebang. The whole complex machine of material energy is influenced by Mahamaya, under her control. So the relation between the word Prakriti or material nature and Mahamaya is it's different aspects of the same entity. Okay? Anyone else?
What is the main difference between Goloka Vrindavana versus Vaikuntha?
Main difference between Goloka Vrindavan and Vaikuntha is the degree of madhurya or intimacy or sweetness. There's the same Aishvarya or opulence, same abundant opulence in both. But in Vaikuntha, it's just opulence, opulence, opulence that leads to on veneration. There's also dasya, but dasya in on veneration. So that there's limitation of rasas because of the preponderance of opulence or Aishvarya. It's Aishvarya Bhav in Vaikuntha. And in Goloka, the same opulence is there, but much, much more degree of sweetness, and thus the expanding of the rasas. And a different sense of majesty of Krishna is regarded differently. A nice example, because we've been reading it, is Krishna had two mothers. He was born as the son of Devaki, and he showed the four-arm form, Vasudeva and Devaki, and they offered prayers. We read some of them. And she's seeing his divinity, his Aishvarya, because that's what he's showing. But Mother Yashoda doesn't have such a sense. There's no prayers to Krishna when Krishna takes birth. Because in Goloka, her mood is sweetness. She's my son, he's my son. Whoever he may be, he's my son. If I don't feed him, he's in trouble. I have to discipline him if he does misbehavior, because if he grows up and then he's gonna, who knows? So I have my motherly affection for Krishna, or the cowherd boys, or the gopas, and etc. The elder gopas. That's the main difference. Preponderance of madhurya, or sweetness, of loving affection. And thus the fullness of the rasas is found. And when there is some display of Aishwarya, they check it out, but then it gets overwhelmed and forgotten by the sweetness feature.
So just one more question to add that. When a person is liberated,
When a person does what?
Liberated.
Gets liberated.
Liberated. So whether he go to the Vaikuntha or like a Goloka Vrindavan, does it depends upon his bhava at the time of the departure?
Yes.
Or does he need to do more penances to go to Goloka Vrindavan?
No, it's not a matter of more. It's a matter of quality, not quantity. Because more is sufficient. It's pure as pure as pure. It's not that the residents of Vaikuntha are not sufficiently pure. They're pure. Squeaky clean. No mix. But there's a certain regard towards the object of love. And if the regard is Aishwarya all the way, that's Vaikuntha. So it depends upon the regard, or the bhakti, or the bhava towards the Lord, the object of love. And to get that Goloka bhav, the teaching is one must get the association of such a resident. There isn't some other way. You're with me?
Yes.
Okay, good. There's this discussion in Chaitanya Charitamrita between Lord Chaitanya and the chief priest of Sri Rangam Temple, Venkatabhata. You know that discussion?
No.
Okay. You know who is, could you just mean this one? You know who is Lord Chaitanya?
Yes.
Okay. So when he was traveling in South India, when it came to the rainy season, he was in Sri Rangam. So the chief priest of Sri Rangam invited him, stay in my home for the rainy season. So he did. And then every evening they would have discussions. So one evening, Venkatabhata was asked by Lord Chaitanya, can you explain why the goddess of fortune, who is most chaste, wanted to be in Krishna's Rasa Leela? And Venkatabhata said, there's no unchastity, because Krishna and Narayana, they're the same. So Krishna said, that may be, if they're the same, why did she leave the lotus feet of Narayan to go enter the rasa dance of Krishna? And she, the goddess of fortune, had to undergo austerities to do that. And not only that, even with long, long austerities, she wasn't allowed. Can you explain? If they're the same, why austerities and why she wasn't allowed? And Venkatabhata said, I don't know, but I think you know. Can you explain? So here's the explanation. Her bhava is, I'm the goddess of fortune, and Narayan is my eternal master, my husband. And that doesn't fit in Braja. So even austerities, and you're the goddess of fortune, austerities aren't going to get you there. What's needed is the favor of one of the residents of Braja, because it's a special mood of love. And they can share, transmit, impart that mood of love. then one is eligible. Whoever you are, not have to be the goddess of fortune, just one of us. But we need that mercy from the residents of Russia. They're so elevated. And that's the teaching of, from Nectar of Devotion, that's called Raga Nuga Bhakti. Raga Nuga Bhakti there's the vidhis, the rules and regulations that we follow, and there's this cultivation, internal cultivation of association with one of the perfected souls that are Krishna's eternal associates, the Ragatmika Bhaktas, they're called. Then that mood of sweetness you can receive and imbibe by that method, the cultivation of their mood through their mercy. So they're merciful, they'll give them, but that's what's required, not being the goddess of fortune or doing austerities or anything. Being very, very learned. Then after giving that explanation, then Lord Chaitanya laughed and he said, well, it's okay. No, what you said is true. They're one entity, and he just kind of covered it over. But Venkatapata understood. And his brother, Prabodhananda Saraswati, he also understood. And his son, Gopal Bhatta, understood. So later Gopal, his son, became Gopal Bhatta Goswami in Vrindavan. And his brother, which is Gopal's uncle, he also moved to Vrindavan and made his residence in Vrindavan to be with that sweetness feature of Krishna, and wrote books about it. They're very amazing books.
Maharaj, if a family member
Do we have a microphone somewhere? This is for online people. We can hear you, but they may not be able to.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, the question I have is for a family member or a friend, who is not into Krishna consciousness, or who is not, God conscious, or who doesn't believe in Krishna. So can we pray for them to bring them to Krishna consciousness?
Oh yeah, please do.
Does it happen, or how soon, or how fast?
Well, it depends on Krishna. It depends on our purity, and it depends on Krishna. So become more pure. That's something you can do.
Yeah, the next question is yeah.
Follow the path of pure bhakti.
Also, how do I see consistency in our chanting or mood, right? Because
It's everything. Yes, it starts with chanting, but it's also then expands to everything that we do. Our hearing, our worshipping, our carrying Vaishnava qualities and dealing with our family members and the world and so forth. It's all those things, but it starts with chanting. Okay? Either of you anything? Okay. Online, do you anything? Would you want to chime in here with some pearls of wisdom? No? Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
We all know that we are going to leave this body. Once we leave the body, do we still remember what happens on this planet?
Are we going to remember what happened after we leave our body? That's your question. It's up to Super Soul. Matakshmitir jnanam apohanam cha. Correct? Krishna says, 15:15, Bhagavad Gita, I'm situated in the heart of every living entity. From me comes remembrance, forgetfulness, or knowledge. So it depends, it's up to Krishna. Will we remember or not? What else?
So,
Anything online?
yeah, we have an online. When we say Vaikuntha planets, are we speaking of A question. When we say Vaikuntha planets, are we speaking of realms of Dwaraka and Mathura as well?
No, generally no. Technically it can, but generally no. It means Haridam or below Goloka. That's it?
So far,
Okay. You have one back here.
This is the continuation of
His question, okay. Sure.
Bhagavad Gita says that Gatvana Nivartante, when he goes back home, back to Godhead, he never comes back.
Yeah.
Does he get the remembrance of all this thing he has gone through in this material world, or why he does not?
Why he doesn't come back?
Yeah.
Because Krishna's promise, that's why he doesn't come back. Krishna protects him from again falling. We're protected by Krishna's promise. I mean, there's other factors which we learned our lesson. To go back, you have to learn your lessons. And once you've learned your lessons, you don't forget. But those are two very simple explanations that are given. But the main one is Krishna's promise that protects us. Okay?
One question.
Yeah.
Why the human population is profoundly increasing in the age of Kali when it is too difficult to get a human life?
Okay. Here's a couple of questions for you. Are living entities finite or infinite? Are they limited or unlimited?
Limited.
Okay. So now, let's just take this building that we're in right now. Before this building was here, let's just assume there was something else. And that something else probably had a whole bunch of other living entities. Trees and bugs and whatever. Now, those living entities have been displaced. Where'd they go? There's a finite number. They went somewhere.
They will get a human.
They may have migrated to some other species, and now there's an abundance of human species. But human species is going to kill itself off. That's what human species do. Wait a while. They're gearing up for war. And I'm sure going to be lots, besides coronavirus killing people, there's going to be wars killing people. It's moving in that direction. It's cycles of time. And so then there's going to be fewer human population. And then when that fewer human population, there's going to be more of other living entities. You have to go somewhere. Okay, we're done. Thank you very much, Prabhupada Ki.
Jai.
Jai.